The call came while I was rinsing a coffee mug in the sink. Her name flashed across the screen. I almost didn't answer. My mother rarely called without urgency, and urgency with her usually meant something that somehow became my responsibility. When I picked up, the background noise was loud, voices, shopping carts, the hollow echo of a big store. "Why is my card declining?" she snapped before I could say hello. "I'm standing here at the register. Fix this glitch right now." There was no greeting, no explanation. Just the assumption that the problem belonged to me. For a second I said nothing. I watched the water swirl down the drain. "It's not a glitch," I said, a pause on the other end. Not long, but enough. "What do you mean it's not a glitch?" Her voice sharpened. "The cashier keeps trying it and it won't go through." I dried my hands on a towel. "You told me you wanted independence," I said. "Remember?" Silence, then a sharp inhale. "Don't play games with me," she said. "Just fix it." The strange thing was that a year earlier I probably would have. I would have logged into the account, moved money around, apologized to the cashier through her speakerphone like I'd done before, but the accounts weren't arranged the way they used to be. "I didn't play a game," I said. "I separated the finances, like you asked." Another pause, this one longer. I could picture her standing there, hand on the counter, the cashier waiting politely while the line behind her grew. "You left me with nothing," she said finally, disbelief rising into anger. The way she said it almost made it sound like betrayal, but it hadn't been sudden. Months earlier she'd stood in my living room during one of our arguments and said she didn't need me controlling everything. She'd called my help interference. Said she was perfectly capable of managing her own life. The next week I started untangling things, not dramatically, quietly. Bank forms, account transfers, removing automatic payments that had been routed through me for years. She had her own accounts again, her own cards, her own responsibility. I never announced it. "You said you wanted independence," I repeated. The cashier's voice murmured faintly through the phone. My mother ignored it. "You can't just cut someone off like this," she said. I didn't answer immediately. Because technically I hadn't cut her off. I had just stopped holding everything together. "I didn't cut you off," I said. "You have your own accounts now. You think this is funny?" "No." Another silence. Then she lowered her voice in that way she used when she wanted control back. "You're going to regret this." Maybe a few years ago that would have worked. Her voice had carried weight then. Now it mostly sounded tired. "I have to go," I said. "You're hanging up on me." "Yes." And I did. The quiet in my apartment afterward felt strange, not triumphant, just open. The folder on my dining table had been there all morning. Inside were documents I had been reviewing for weeks. Housing paperwork, a lease agreement that had originally been framed as temporary while she got back on her feet. That had been 5 years ago. Temporary has a way of stretching when nobody challenges it. The lease had expired 2 years earlier. She'd simply stayed. And I had allowed it. Until recently. I sat down and read through the eviction notice again. The language was neutral, procedural, no emotion. Just dates, terms, and legal requirements. It didn't accuse anyone of anything. It simply described the situation as it existed on paper. That was the strange part about paperwork. It removed history from the equation. It didn't care about guilt, or obligation, or family arguments. It cared about signatures. I signed the document and placed it in the envelope addressed to the housing office that handled filings for our district. I didn't plan to deliver it to her personally. Some things worked better when they came through official channels. A week passed before I heard anything, not from her. From a legal office. They requested copies of the original housing agreement. I forwarded them without commentary. 2 days later another letter arrived confirming that the documentation supported my claim. The process would move forward according to standard housing regulations. It was oddly calm. No shouting. No dramatic confrontation. Just procedure. For years our relationship had been built around urgency, problems that had to be solved immediately, decisions that couldn't wait. But institutions didn't respond to urgency. They responded to records. Another week went by. She didn't call. I found myself listening for the phone anyway. Not because I expected reconciliation. More because silence from her was unfamiliar. Eventually I stopped checking. One evening I sat in the same kitchen where that call from the market had happened. The apartment was quiet again. The same mug sat on the counter. Nothing in the room looked different. But the pressure that used to sit in the back of my mind, anticipating the next crisis, the next demand, had faded into something lighter. Not relief exactly, just space. I still didn't know what the relationship would look like after all this. Maybe it would collapse entirely. Maybe distance would force something more honest. Or maybe the silence would continue. I wasn't celebrating. I was simply sitting in a quiet apartment, realizing that the loudest moment of the conflict had probably already passed, in the middle of a grocery store line, when a credit card stopped working and the world didn't rearrange itself to fix it.